My friends, let us begin not with analysis, but with presence. Feel this moment. Feel the heaviness of your own name. Now feel the invisible glances that follow you in life, the silent judgments, the unseen projections, the whispers in rooms you never entered, hatred, especially when it multiplies, especially when it persists, is never merely external, it is psychic, it is energetic, and in some cases, it is archetypal. You must understand, hatred is not simply someone disliking you. It is the unconscious of others waging war on the image of themselves that you have awakened. And when too many people hate you, when it seems the crowd has turned, or when gossip becomes currency passed between hands, you are not merely under social scrutiny. You are under a spiritual trial. We live in a world governed not by logic, but by myth. And in myth, those who awaken forces, whether Prometheus, Christ, Socrates, or even the fool, are often hated by the collective, not because of who they are, but because of what they symbolize. You must ask yourself, who are you symbolizing when they scorn you? Perhaps you are not hated for your actions, but for the wound you reopen in their memory, the unlived life you remind them of, the freedom they fear, the light that exposes their carefully curated shadows. You carry an image, and that image disturbs them. Let me say this. Clearly, hatred, when it accumulates from multiple sources, is never coincidental. It is constellated, a constellation of projections, complexes, un désir, and fragmented shadows begins to swirl. And if you are not conscious of this field, you will absorb it. You will confuse their shadows for your own reflection. I have seen this countless times. The individual, sensitive, intuitive, bright, begins to feel drained, restless, suspicious of their own worth. They withdraw. They believe they are cursed, unloved, or broken. But what is truly happening is a psychic attack, not in the superstitious sense, but in the deeply psychological one. You are being made the carrier of the group's disowned content. You are becoming unconsciously the scapegoat. This is the archetype that haunts such experiences. The scapegoat is not merely an unfortunate victim. It is a role constructed by the psyche of the collective when it is unwilling to face its own contradictions. The scapegoat absorbs what the tribe refuses to process: their insecurities, their guilt, their envy, their repressed rage. The scapegoat then becomes symbolically guilty, not by action, but by collective projection. And this is not merely an abstract theory. It affects the very energy of the individual. When many people hate you, especially subtly or passively, they cast out energetic threads, thought forms anchored in their unconscious. These threads tangle into your psychic field. You may feel inexplicable exhaustion, bursts of anxiety, fragmented identity, or waves of shame without cause. This is not weakness. This is sensitivity, but if not met with consciousness, it becomes pathology. Energy is not neutral. It flows, it clings, it infects. The psyche is porous. The boundary between your unconscious and the unconscious of others is thin, thinner than modern man dares to admit. And when those around you, or even those distant from you, begin to carry resentment, envy, or hatred towards your being, you become the unwilling recipient of their psychic refuse. Some of you know this. You have walked into a room and felt unwelcome before a word was said. You have posted the truth and felt the silent recoil. You have been kind and sensed the discomfort your light brings. You are not imagining it. What does this do to your destiny? That is a deeper question. Because hatred is not only a psychological poison, it is a crucible. And like all crucibles, it either shatters the ego or purifies the soul. When the world hates you, you are offered a sacred challenge. Will you define yourself through their rejection? Or will you remember who you were before they forgot themselves? Destiny, you see, is not linear. It is spiral, and every spiral has initiations, hatred, rejection, and psychic persecution are the gates of an ancient initiation and the descent into the underworld of the self. It is there beneath the masks, beneath the need for approval, beneath the egoic addiction to being liked, that your true self waits. Many do not pass this gate. They compromise, they shrink, they wear the face others approve of, and in doing so, they sacrifice their destiny for acceptance. But for those who endure, who transmute hatred into insight, who turn projection into reflection, who choose to become the container rather than the victim, there is an inheritance waiting. The inheritance of individuation. Individuation is not becoming better, it is becoming whole, and to become whole, one must integrate both the light and the shadow, not only within, but without. You must learn to integrate the hatred of others into your inner work. You must ask, what does this hatred awaken in me? What part of me is being sculpted by this fire? This is alchemy, psychological alchemy, where you transmute external lead into internal gold. But it is not romantic, it is lonely. The loneliness of being hated is not merely social. It is archetypal. The moment you begin to awaken your true pattern, you will find yourself increasingly misunderstood. This is not failure. This is the threshold. Because your pattern, the unique psychic imprint that only you can carry, often disrupts the collective trance. You become a danger to the unconscious agreements of your tribe. I recall the dreams of patients who stood on the edge of the threshold. One dreamt of being hunted through the forest by a faceless crowd. Another stood on trial in a cathedral with no roof, judged by figures wearing the faces of loved ones. And another, perhaps the most haunting, dreamt of being buried alive in a mirror only to realize the mirror reflected not themselves, but the disapproval of others. These dreams are not merely symbols, they are maps. Maps of what the soul must pass through when hated. You will be hunted, not by spears, but by insinuations. You will be judged, not by courts, but by glances. You will be buried, not in earth, but in stories about you that are not yours. And yet, if you hold your center, if you stay awake, you will be reborn. This is not metaphorical. The energy of rebirth follows a psychic law. The deeper you are pushed into the unconscious by external hatred, the deeper you are called to mine your own truth. The pressure will build, the soul will split, the persona will crack, and if you do not break, something ancient within you will awaken. Call it the self, call it the sacred observer, call it the God within, but it will awaken only if you are willing to sit in the fire of rejection long enough to remember your original name. Too many people think hatred is something to escape, but what if it is something to listen to? Not the words, not the tone, but the symbols hidden in their reaction. Who are you becoming? That they fear, what have you touched in them? That they deny, what have you seen? That they wish remained hidden. This is where the energy shifts. The moment you realize that hatred is not proof of your inadequacy, but of your symbolic power, you begin to harness its energy. Like an alchemist gathering venom to forge an antidote, you begin to transmute resentment into resilience, envy into insight, and judgment into liberation. But you must know the danger too. If you internalize their hatred, if you identify with their projections, you will begin to sabotage your own destiny. You will dim your light, betray your calling, and enter a life that is not yours, but theirs. A life of masks, of compromises, of spiritual poverty. The moment you doubt your worth because others cannot see it, you fracture the mirror of your own soul. And this fracture attracts more distortion. The unconscious seeks coherence. If too many people tell you a lie about yourself, and you believe it, the psyche will begin to organize around that lie. This is how the energy of hatred derails destiny, by convincing the soul to become small enough to avoid attack. But you were not made to be safe. You were made to be whole. And wholeness requires tension. So I invite you to shift your gaze. Do not ask why they hate you. Ask why your energy can no longer be digested by the herd. Perhaps you have outgrown their dream. Perhaps you carry a frequency that reveals their numbness. Perhaps your very presence awakens their archetypal fear of transformation. If so, good. This is the beginning of individuation. And individuation, my friends, begins when you are no longer held hostage by the love of the crowd. You are not here to be liked. You are here to be real. And that, I promise you, will always be misunderstood by those who remain asleep. There is a certain silence that descends when one is hated by many. It is not the silence of peace, but the silence of being unseen, misrepresented, distorted. The soul begins to ache in the absence of truth, and if one is not vigilant, this ache becomes identity. This, my friends, is the most dangerous moment in the evolution of the self, when the collective shadow becomes your personal skin. I must tell you something difficult. Most people do not see you. They see the part of themselves they have not made peace with. You, the real you, are often invisible behind the veil of their unconscious. They speak to your image as it appears in the theater of their wounds. And the more unaware they are of their inner life, the more distorted that image becomes. If they carry unhealed inferiority, they may see you as arrogant. If they carry abandonment, you will feel like betrayal. If they carry failure, you will feel like threat. And so, what does it do to your energy? It bends it. It twists the natural flow of your psychic current. You begin to anticipate rejection even where none exists. You contract, you question, you fidget at the edge of your own skin. Your natural radiance, your psychic fragrance dims. not because it has been destroyed, but because it has been wrapped in caution. But destiny does not unfold in a cautious body. It requires daring. It requires your full psychic presence. Now, listen to me carefully. To be fully present in a world that resents, your essence is an act of spiritual warriorship. And this war is not with others, it is with your own temptation to abandon yourself. There are many names for this abandonment: people-pleasing, perfectionism, silence, invisibility. But at the root of each is a single gesture, the withdrawal of the soul from its rightful position in the center of the psyche. The soul begins to orbit others, measuring its worth in their reactions. This is energetic exile. And every moment you spend exiled from your inner center is a moment of psychic depletion. This is why your energy feels so fragile when hated. It is not because you are weak. It is because you have left your psychic home to go looking for validation in the land of distortion. But your destiny does not lie there. Your destiny is not a democracy. It is a divine blueprint, and no crowd, however loud, can vote it away. The question then is not whether you are hated. The question is whether you will return to your center in spite of it. Now, what does it mean to return to your center? It means to stop arguing with the distorted mirrors. It means to stop justifying your light. It means to stop defending yourself against shadows you did not cast. The one who is centered speaks less and sees more. They no longer rush to correct how they are perceived. They understand that perception is projection. And projections belong to the projector, not the screen. You are not the screen. You are the lamp behind it. Let's go deeper. The hatred of many is often a call from the unconscious for the hero's journey to begin. I do not mean the hero in the egotistical sense, but in the archetypal sense, the one who leaves the village not to conquer the world, but to remember the soul. When the village hates you, it is the unconscious announcing your time here is complete. You have served the pattern. Now you must walk the edge, you must descend. The descent begins not in grand gestures, but in subtle inner revolutions. You stop trying to fit in. You begin to ask different questions. You no longer ask, how can I be accepted? But rather, what am I being prepared for? This is a sacred shift. Because now the hatred of others becomes a forge. It becomes the place where the false self melts. Do you know the myth of the phoenix? Of course, you do. But what many forget is that before the phoenix rises, it first sits in the fire until it is ash. There is no bypass, no shortcut, only surrender. When too many people hate you, you are sitting in that fire, and everything false must burn. The ego's need for reputation, the persona's need for likability, even your attachment to innocence, all of it ash, and yet the soul remains, the archetype remains, the divine pattern remains. And it is from that ash that your true energy is reborn, not polished. But primal, not ornamental, but oracular. This reborn energy does not ask for permission to exist. It simply is. It speaks softly. Yet penetratis, it walks slowly, yet bends time. It no longer seeks the approval of those who misunderstand it, because it knows its source is older than their opinions. This then is the alchemy of hatred. It forces the death of the false self. And in the vacancy, the self, the capital S self enters. But beware, not everyone makes it through the fire. Some identify with the hatred. They become bitter, cynical, suspicious of beauty. They turn the pain outward. They mock the light in others. They repeat the cycle. Others collapse inward. They disappear. They shrink their lives to fit the comfort of being invisible. They silence their voice. They live on the edge of themselves. Neither of these paths leads to destiny. Destiny, real destiny, requires you to face the hatred and choose neither collapse nor counterattack. It asks you to stand in the center of the storm and say, I will not become what they fear. I will become what I am. Let me tell you something I rarely said in public. I, too, knew this storm. There were times my work was mocked, misunderstood, condemned. My exploration of dreams, symbols, and the shadow was called heretical, mystical, even dangerous. And yet I pressed on, not because I sought fame, but because I had seen the face of the soul, and I could not betray it. And so I say to you, if too many people hate you, good. You are stepping beyond the veil. You are disturbing the collective illusion. You are becoming real. Now, let us turn to the symbol of dreams. For the dream realm is where the unconscious reveals the truth beneath appearances. When one is hated, the dreams often shift. You may begin to dream of falling, of being chased, of drowning. These are not nightmares, they are symbols of transformation. Falling into the underworld, chased by the shadow, drowning in the unconscious. These dreams must be respected. They are maps. They tell you where you are in the initiation. And if you listen, they will also show you the way through. One patient of mine, a woman hated by her community for breaking social norms, dreamt of standing at the edge of a Black Sea. No one stood with her. The sky above was violet. The water whispered her name. And though she feared it, she entered. The next day, she awoke in tears, not of fear, but of recognition. She realized the sea was me. Yes, the collective hatred had pushed her to the edge of herself. And in that moment, she saw that the very thing she feared, her inner world, was the source of her power. This is always the case. When others withdraw love, it is your task to deepen the well within, not as compensation, but as consecration. You will not change their minds, nor should you try. The point is not to be liked, the point is to be aligned with truth, with the archetype that breathes through you, with the sacred wound that has shaped your life's pattern. And what is that wound? Look closely. Beneath the hatred you have received is a pattern of rejection older than this life. Perhaps you were the black sheep in your family, the strange one in school, the one who asked too many questions in church, the one who cried too much, felt too deeply, spoke too loudly, or not at all. This pattern is not random. It is archetypal. You were marked not as punishment, but as preparation. The soul often incarnates with an energetic frequency that will disturb the status quo. And the soul knows disturbance is the beginning of awakening. So If you feel hated now, trace it. Where did this pattern begin? What archetype does it resemble? Is it the rebel, the witch, the prophet, the fool, the orphan? Each of these carries both pain and power. And until you claim the archetype consciously, you will suffer it unconsciously. Claim it, not with arrogance, but with quiet knowing. Say to yourself, if they hate me for speaking truth, then I must be the one who speaks. If they fear my intensity, then perhaps I'm meant to awaken fire. If they shun my softness, then I must carry the medicine of tenderness in a brutal world. This is the shift that restores your energy. You stop trying to escape your pattern, and instead you become it fully, creatively, sacredly. Then, and only then, does hatred lose its sting. Not because it disappears, but because it no longer defines you. The energy returns, the soul rises. The destiny, once delayed by confusion, begins to stir. It is not too late. Even if the world has spoken against you, you may still speak for yourself. And when you do, when you speak live and move from your center, the very energy that once spent in fear begins to spiral outward with intention. You stop absorbing, you start emitting, you become the mirror that shows others their own face, not with malice, but with clarity. Some will still hate you. Let them. They are not your audience. Your audience is your soul, and your soul has been waiting for this moment of return. There is a particular turning point in the soul's path when the hatred of others no longer feels like poison but prophecy. That is when you begin to understand they were never hating you, they were rejecting the future you carry. Yes, you carry a future, and futures are always persecuted by the present. The unconscious of the collective clings to comfort. It resists the unfamiliar, the unexplainable, the individual who cannot be reduced to a category. And so when you appear unfolding not from a mold but from mystery, you are met not with celebration but with resistance. That resistance may take the form of silence, of rumor, of contempt, disguised as care. But it is all one thing. Fear. Do not become bitter. Instead, become deeper, deeper than the projections, deeper than the roles, deeper than the need to be right. Hatred, when met with depth, loses its target because depth cannot be hated in the way surfaces can. It absorbs, it transmutes, it reflects back something ancient, something beyond judgment. This is the path of the symbolic individual. You are no longer simply a person. You are a vessel, a carrier of the numinous, and the numinous terrifies those who have buried their gods. In the ancient myths, the one who returns from the underworld always returns changed. Not cleaner, not more righteous, but stranger. Their eyes are distant, their speech pierces, their presence carries the silence of death and the fragrance of resurrection. This is what happens to you when you survive collective hatred without losing your soul. You become strange to the world because you are no longer owned by it. And it will try again. Oh yes, it will try again to pull you back into its narrative. It will offer you applause, this time as bait. It will praise the version of you that no longer exists, hoping to lure you into self-betrayal. This is a more subtle danger than hatred, because once you have tasted exclusion, the offer of inclusion feels like warmth, but not all warmth is truth. Sometimes it is anesthesia. Do not accept their praise if it comes with the condition that you silence your fire. There is a deeper audience now, the inner court of your own psyche, and in that court, the self presides. The self does not care for applause. It seeks only alignment, wholeness, integration. You have begun to feel it, haven't you? The quiet behind your thoughts, the rhythm behind your words, the strange sense that something inside you is watching everything unfold, untouched, unbothered, fully awake. This is the self, not your ego, not your persona, but the eternal pattern of your being, older than any insult, immune to any praise. When you align with the self, your energy becomes sovereign. That is the word sovereign. No longer reactive, no longer leaking, no longer bent to fit the demands of those who do not know how to love. And it is here that destiny resumes. Because destiny is not just a path, it is a resonance, a certain vibration of truth that flows from your center and begins to shape the outer world. When too many people hate you and you survive it consciously, your energy is no longer entangled with theirs. It returns to your orbit, and in that orbit, something new begins to form. Call it art, call it voice, call it mission, call it soul print, but know this, it only emerges after the fire, after the ashes, after you stop trying to prove your innocence to those committed to misunderstanding. That is the final trap, you see, to try to be understood by the very ones whose unconscious depends on distorting you. Let them go. Let their misunderstanding die in the silence it deserves. You are not here to correct every perception. You are here to carry the torch of something sacred. And sacred things do not explain themselves. They reveal themselves only to those who are ready to see. I have seen this pattern in so many dreamscapes, in so many symbolic sequences. A soul surrounded by a crowd, the crowd shouting names, the soul kneeling, trembling, crying, and then silence. In that silence, the dream shifts. The soul opens its eyes and realizes no one was there. The crowd was illusion. Every figure was a fragment of the self, demanding allegiance to old beliefs. And in that moment of revelation, the soul rises. Alone, yes, but not lonely. Full, reclaimed, sovereign. You must understand your energy is precious, not because it is rare, but because it is unrepeatable. No one else carries your precise myth. No one else has your exact configuration of wounds, insights, ancestry, dreams, failure, symbols. You are a once in eternity constellation. And when that constellation begins to shine, those who have not yet awakened to their own pattern will try to dim yours, not consciously, rarely maliciously, but inevitably, because unconscious people cannot tolerate what they have not yet claimed within themselves. So again, I say, do not resent them, but do not follow them either. Walk your path not defiantly, not proudly but wholly. Wholeness is not loud. It hums. It reverberates. It alters timelines. Yes, you heard me when you reclaim your energy from the mouth of hatred. You alter timelines. What was once delayed, your art, you calling, your message, your knowing begins to flow again. But this flow is different. It no longer seeks to be received. It simply expresses. It blesses. It moves like a river, indifferent to applause. This is your task now, to become the river. Not the dam, not the drought, but the river. Even if they block you, flow around them. Even if they curse you, cleanse through them. Even if they forget you, feed the roots beneath their feet. Not because they deserve it, but because that is what rivers do. And when they finally come to their senses, and many will, someday they will not remember your defense. They will remember your presence, your silence, your stillness, your refusal to abandon yourself. And perhaps then they will begin their own journey. But that is not your concern. Your concern is the myth you carry. So ask yourself, what part of the human story am I here to express? Am I the awakener, the one who disturbs? Am I the healer, the one who sees into pain? Am I the mirror, the one who reflects without flinching? Am I the bridge, the one who walks between worlds? The answer matters, not because it gives you status, but because it gives you structure. Without a structure for your suffering, you will collapse beneath it. But with the right archetypal container, even hatred becomes sacred fuel. So build your container not out of revenge, not out of perfectionism, but out of archetypal clarity. When the inner structure is strong, the outer chaos loses its grip. Let me share with you something very old, something whispered in ancient temples and buried in symbols. The soul that has survived collective hatred without bitterness becomes a living portal. A portal to the future, a portal to memory, a portal to the sacred. You are becoming that portal. So stand still. Let them speak. Let them project. Let them misunderstand. You have work to do. And that work begins not in explanation, but in embodiment. Let the light in your eyes confuse them. Let the steadiness in your voice unravel their narratives. Let the peace in your presence irritate the noise they've made of the world. You are not here to fight them. You are here to remember yourself so fully, so intimately that their hatred becomes irrelevant. Not because it stops, but because you have stopped needing anything from it. And that, my dear listener, is what frees your destiny. When we speak of freedom, we must be careful not to confuse it with escape. Many who are hated seek escape, not freedom. They want relief, not realization. But the psyche is not interested in relief. The psyche desires wholeness, and wholeness, my friends, is purchased through pressure. Too many people hate you. Then the pressure is building good. That pressure, if you remain conscious, will push you through the narrow passage between your false self and your soul. The alchemists call this stage the nigredo, the blackening, the rotting of the persona, the collapse of illusion. It is painful. It is disorienting. And it is necessary. You cannot carry your destiny in the same skin that long to be liked by everyone. You must molt. And molting is messy. You will shed roles. You will lose names. You will forget how to walk the way others walk. You will stand at the edge of language, unsure how to speak, without betraying something sacred. But listen to me now. When you are molting, do not ask the crowd for direction. They do not understand what you are becoming. In fact, they cannot, because what you are becoming is not of this world. It is of the mythic realm, the invisible landscape of symbols, gods and dreams. This is the great divide between the individual and the collective. The collective speaks in terms of conformity, but the individual on the mythic path begins to hear a different language, a whisper from the soul, a vision in the dark, a knowing that cannot be defended in court. If you are hated and still you hear this whisper, then you are blessed. Yes, I say it again, blessed, not in the way the church might define it, not as reward, but as a recognition. The soul has recognized you as ready to be undone, ready to be made new. Do not resist it. The temptation now will be to armor yourself, to become sharper, wittier, more defended, to master the language of power in order to prevent further wounding. But that is not transformation. That is adaptation. Adaptation is what the ego does to survive, but transformation is what the soul does to fulfill its pattern. You must decide survival or soul, and if you choose the soul, you must pass through a stage of vulnerability, so raw it may feel like death. You will feel everything, every judgment, every silence, every twist of the knife, not because you are weak, but because you have stopped numbing yourself to stay acceptable. This is where your real energy begins to return. Not as confidence, but as current flow, movement. The river begins again. You will cry more often. You will laugh with no audience. You will speak slower. You will walk away from applause. You will see through smiles. You will know, before they say it, who is lying. Your intuition sharpens, not because you trained it, but because you cleaned it. The hatred of others sandblasted your illusions. You see now, without the fog of needing to belong, do you understand what a gift that is? You are not under attack. You are under initiation. This initiation cannot be performed in public. It happens in the dark, in silence, while you wash dishes, while you stare at the ceiling, while you lose every argument in your mind, while you ache for someone to understand, and then, only then, does the self appear, not like a king, not like a savior, but like a mirror. It shows you what has always been inside you, the image you forgot, the archetype behind your face, the spark that survived every exile. This is the moment you are no longer lonely, even if you are alone, because now you walk with the one who never left, the self, the sacred witness, the architect of your life's unfolding. Let us pause here for a breath. Feel your spine. Feel the weight you've carried. Now feel the weight that is not yours. Can you sense the difference? So much of what you call exhaustion is inherited projection. You have been shouldering others' shame. You have been answering questions you never asked. You have been fixing mirrors that were broken before you arrived. Put it down. Not out of spite, out of clarity. You were not made to carry their unlived lives. You were made to embody your full pattern, regardless of who finds it inconvenient. And this embodiment is not performance, it is presence. To be embodied means to speak without rehearsal, to grieve without apology, to glow without dimming, to love without disguise. But to get there, to truly get there, you must pass through the most dangerous shadow of all self-hatred. Yes, it is not their hatred that wounds you most. It is your willingness to believe it. There is in every human a shadow figure who waits for confirmation of their unworthiness. And when the crowd begins to hate you, that figure rises, it whispers, "See, I told you, you are too much, too soft, too different, too loud, too intense, too slow, too strange." If you do not confront this figure, it will sabotage your destiny on behalf of the very people who never saw you. This is what hatred truly does to energy. It opens a gate within you where the ancient wound waits to reassert itself. That wound may be pre-verbal, inherited, collective. It may go back generations, but now it is yours to meet, not to fix, not to explain, to witness, to hold, to say, even if the whole world hates me, I will no longer hate myself. That sentence, if said with conviction, is the moment of energetic reversal. That is when your field begins to clear. That is when your aura, your presence, your frequency, whatever term you prefer, shifts from being porous to becoming radiant. People may still project onto you, but the projections slide off. They have nowhere to stick. You no longer resonate with their shame because you have integrated your own. Do you see the sacred symmetry? You survived their hatred, not by overpowering it, but by integrating its mirror within. You no longer need to hide the part of you they judged. You wear it, you walk with it. It becomes your cloak, your medicine bag, your spell book. This is how the shaman is born. Not in ecstasy, but in exile. The shaman, in all indigenous systems, is the one who dies before they die. The one who descends, the one who loses their place in the tribe, only to return with gifts too wild for the marketplace. You, too, are becoming that, not a guru, not a brand, but a carrier of soul in a culture of masks, and it is only from this place, this sacred estrangement, that your true destiny unfolds. Not the one you imagined, not the one they expected, but the one written in your bones before your name was spoken. This destiny does not clamor, it whispers, it does not strive, it invites, it does not dominate, it harmonizes, and it cannot be stolen by hatred because it was never built on approval. It rises from within, untouched by the noise outside, and so I leave you with this. If you are hated by many, pause. Do not react. Do not rush to prove or please. Instead, ask the deeper question. What power within me have they mistaken for threat? What radiance in me do they fear to see? What part of my soul is ready to be remembered? And then go into that place, not to hide, but to become. Now we come to the most subtle terrain of all, the return, the turning inward, not as retreat, but as revolution. You have passed through the wilderness of hatred. You have faced the projections. You have watched your name be twisted by mouths that never knew you. You have been broken, disoriented, isolated, but in this death, something sacred has opened a soft, indestructible flame. And now that you've survived the fire, the question must be asked, what will you do with this new awareness? For here lies the greatest paradox of all. When you stop seeking to be understood, you begin to truly understand not them, but yourself, the vast landscape that lives beneath your behaviors, the forces that shaped you, the symbols that called to you in childhood but were silenced by conditioning, and now in the wake of exile. They return, the forgotten images, the fragments, the lost parts of your psyche that were once traded for love. They come not to haunt, but to be reclaimed. You may begin to dream of animals, of ruins, of voices speaking in forgotten languages. Do not dismiss them. This is the symbolic system of your own myth rising to the surface. You are not descending into madness. You are awakening into meaning. You will find yourself drawn to silence more than noise, to depth more than display. You may weep over things you once ignored. You may laugh when others moan. This is not detachment. This is attunement. You are moving by the rhythm of your own soul, not by the metronome of the collective. And yet, you must learn how to live among them again. For the work is not to escape the world, but to walk in it unchanged. Yes, unchanged. Not as in stubborn, but as in sovereign. You no longer absorb everything said about you. You no longer explain your joy. You no longer ask for permission to follow your knowing. You walk through the crowd with a strange softness, and that softness unnerves them more than any defiance ever could. They may still hate you, but their hatred no longer lands. It moves through you like wind through a tree that no longer fears the storm. You are becoming that tree now. Rooted in the invisible, you do not need to speak your truth loudly. Your presence speaks it for you. You do not need to correct the record. The record no longer matters. You do not need to convince anyone to love you. You have remembered the source of your own. This is not ego. It is essence. The hatred of others has scrubbed you clean of pretense. You have come to see that the only identity worth claiming is the one that cannot be named. The soul is not a label, it is a presence, and presence, once fully inhabited, cannot be hated in any lasting way, only feared, respected, or quietly followed. And perhaps that is your role now, not to lead, but to remind, to live in such deep alignment with your inner world that others begin to question the trance they are in. Not through argument, but through embodiment. You are not here to fix others. You are not here to wake the world. You are here to stay awake, especially when the world tries to pull you back into sleep. And there will be moments where the old ache returns, where the shadow whispers. Wouldn't it be easier if you just belonged again, if you just softened your truth, if you just wore the mask one more time? In those moments, breathe, feel your feet on the ground. Remember the years you spent abandoned by your own center. Remember the aching smile you wore for the approval of those who could never see you. And then, from your belly, whisper back, no, not with anger, with clarity. No, I will not abandon myself again. No, I will not enter rooms that cost me my soul. No, I will not dim my radiance to ease their discomfort. This is not rebellion. This is reverence. And from this reverence, a new pattern begins to form. Destiny no longer feels like a far-off peak. It becomes breath. It becomes word. It becomes action. Your very life becomes a myth you were born to embody. You find yourself guided not by logic, but by resonance. You know what to say, when to move, where to rest. Not because someone told you, but because your inner world is no longer polluted by their projections. This is what hatred has given you. It cleared the field. It cut away the false. It shattered the mirrors so that you could finally see your own face, unreflected. And now I must ask something of you, not for me, but for the world. Do not keep this gift for yourself, not as performance, but as quiet presence. There are others, many others, still caught in the grip of being misunderstood, still curled around the ache of rejection, still convinced that they are broken because others could not receive them. When you walk into the room, let your stillness speak. When you hold their gaze, let them see that survival is possible, that there is life after exile, that they, too, can stop apologizing for their essence. You will not save them, but you may remind them, and that reminder, when offered without agenda, becomes the seed of their own return. This is how we heal the world, not through argument, but through archetype, by becoming who we were before we forgot, by remembering the myth beneath our name, by allowing hatred to sculpt us into clarity, not cruelty, by becoming so whole that no projection can stick, no label can bind, no exile can last. And now, before we part, I want to offer you something, not instruction, but invitation. If you find yourself hated, misunderstood, exiled from the narratives of others, return, not to them, but to yourself. Walk in the morning without your phone. Let your feet kiss the earth. Listen for the voice beneath thought, the one that never needed fixing. Sit by a candle at night, watch the flicker, ask it, what part of me have I exiled to be accepted? And then wait, let your dreams speak. Not the ones sold by the culture, the ones that come with sleep, with symbol, with soul. Write what you see, but do not rush to interpret. Some truths ripen only in silence. Speak your name aloud, not the one they call you, but the one that rises when your hand is on your chest and your eyes are closed. Listen for that name in the wind, in the ache, in the animal that visits your path, in the stranger who speaks the exact sentence your soul needed to hear. You are not random. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are becoming. And hatred, though it burned, was the torch that revealed the map. So walk now, not ahead, not behind, but with your soul, with your myth, with the energy that once fragmented but now returns to you. Whole, let this be your real destiny, not to be adored, but to be aligned, not to be protected, but to be present, not to be followed, but to be fully, luminously. You